Hey guys, Beaver just released their new PS5 Smart Pad controller mod. A Smart Pad mod basically turns the D-pad buttons into individual buttons while also adding a more tactile feel. It feels very similar to a mouse button click, and its main purpose is to give the player more control over their actions. Typically, controllers with D-pads have a single piece of plastic for the whole D-pad. This can sometimes cause you to have a missed input, which is a terrible thing to have as a fighting game player. The stock PS5 controller is notoriously bad for fighting games due to missed inputs, and because of this, many fighting game players still use a PS4 controller. The controller I picked is from their quick pick selection. The DualSense Smart Pad Controller Claw Edition is what it's called, and it costs around $250 a piece. Link in the description if you want to check it out. Now, for $250 a pop, is it really worth it? Well, that's really debatable, because it costs just as much as a Hitbox controller and even more than a Snackbox Micro. Now I'm going to be talking about the pros of this controller. First pro is that each action you make on the D-pad is much more deliberate. If you have ever played on a D-pad before, sometimes missed inputs do happen, either due to the player or sometimes the controller. Now we have to talk about these shoulder buttons. These smart triggers work beautifully with no travel time in between each click. This allows for players to have precise timing on the trigger buttons. Another pro is access to shortcuts in games such as Street Fighter 5 and Dragon Ball FighterZ. Due to the Smart Pad feature, each button functions as its own individual input. This allows players to perform easy shoryukens in Street Fighter 5. Just look how easy it is. Now for some cons. The first thing we have to talk about is the price tag. Now $250 is quite steep, but unless you are a serious fighting game player that loves to use a pad, then I don't know if I can justify the price. Something to be wary of is that controllers do wear out over time, and this controller will be no exception. PS4 controllers are much easier to replace, while replacing a Beaver controller will hurt your wallet a lot more. Now for the actual function of the controller, the only problem I had was for the Tiger Knee inputs on MVC3. I use a team of Nova Spencer Doom, and this team has like a million Tiger Knee inputs. I think the actual problem is that UMVC3 has a lot less leniency than modern fighting games when it comes to input. Each input has to register, otherwise the combo will drop. This means having to be extremely precise just to get a single Tiger Knee, while on a PS4 controller I can get it quite consistently due to the single form D-pad. Of course, in modern fighting games this works beautifully because of input leniency, but I mean, it just really means I just gotta get good. Now the verdict, well, it's hard to say. If you have the money, then sure, why not? $250 is steep, but if you are a pad player that wants access to those juicy shoryuken shortcuts, then yes, but for the casual FGC player, you're probably fine with just a regular pad.